Namaste and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in to our live stream from. Welcome. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. Bear with me one moment. Bear with me one moment. Brilliant. So this is the last session of the year. So, I just want to take a moment to say that, friends and supporters of Hindu Academy, as the year comes to a close, we want to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude for your support throughout the year of 2022. Your encouragement and your generosity have played a significant role in helping us to achieve our goals and make a positive impact in our community here. We are excited to share with you that we will be having some new developments coming up in our content strategy. And we will look forward to sharing these with you in the next year as we develop them further. So as we enter into the new year, we ask for your continued support as we strive to bring you valuable content, resources, and programs for this community. So thank you for being a part of the Hindu Academy community family, and we wish you all a healthy, happy, and safe, prosperous new year ahead. So with that, let's get started with today's broadcast. So if you are a new viewer, welcome. I'll give you a quick rundown of how the format of this broadcast is. We run for about 45 to 50 minutes. We start every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. And generally, we have a focused topic. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's about lunar eclipse and superstitions. And so we will have a little video that will discuss this topic, and then we will do a little discussion around it. Then we will open up for general Q&A on anything to do with Hinduism. Now, how can you get involved? Very easy. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, simply like, share, comment. Make sure that your friends and family join us on the conversation here. The more people that join us, the more enjoyable the broadcast becomes. Number two, make sure that you contribute your thoughts, your comments, your questions into the chat area on whichever platform you are on. We will strive to bring your questions live on air and answer them during the course of the broadcast. So with that, I will not take up more time. I will just run straight into the video that we have for you for today. Bear with me as I bring it up. Now, whilst I bring this video up, I will give you a little heads up. About halfway through the video, the video does freeze frame. So, but the audio is perfect. That is what we want you to enjoy.
Pregnant woman sees an eclipse, that is bad luck. Why is that?
You see, the religion that we come from emphasizes two things, and sometimes the Hindus forget, and that's why they pay a heavy price. He says, one thing to look at your teachings, your scriptures, etc., and try and understand them. Second, how do you interpret the teachings of your religion? He says, using this thing that we possess, all of us possess this thing. You must always interpret your religion using your common sense, your own common, not your teacher's common sense, but your own common sense. That's why I'm saying, give dignity to yourself. You get it wrong, it's your mistake. Live with it. Do not just, say that, oh, it's written in some scripture, it's written up here, so that's fixed. Don't do that. This religion allows you to interpret religion as time goes on and say, this doesn't seem right, this seems right, and continue to evolve, We are not fixed, you see, we are a living religion, so we are continuing to evolve all the time. So it is telling you the way you evolve is to continue to challenge, if necessary, question the things that have come out from your tradition, and see to what extent they make sense to you. My answer would be this. If there are any aspects to your religion that do not make sense to you, there's no real logical reason that doesn't satisfy you, then my comment, this is a very strong comment, is to challenge it and reject it. Reject it. Your religion allows you, gives you permission, saying that if it doesn't agree with, look, I used this language on Astha a few times. It's not just the Shruti, your scriptures of authority that you fall back on. It is Yukti, your power of rationality to try and interpret the religion and continue to recognize its limitation, its contextual aspects. So this idea of not just Shruti, but Yukti, use this. This is the best tool you have to guide you. Life is tough. Religions are tough. So use this rational faculty to try and come to terms. If there's anything, for example, the Hindus can be blamed for, ancient and modern, is superstition. Superstition. And they continue to infect our society. They create a lot of harm, cause a lot of distress. Imagine, somebody, in the family, saying, look, you can't do this because it's written somewhere and you can't go out now because the cat passed by, so, you can't stay in the home now. And the person has lost his job because of that. So superstitions have to be challenged of every form. But also, let me just tidy up a little bit in something else. Sometimes these things were adopted for other reasons than you are aware of. And there's one that I want to talk about, and it's this. You see, you will find in the Hindu scriptures, the Shastras, especially when talking about the solar eclipse, when the sun gets covered up, they will say an auspicious day, inauspicious. Don't go out. Pull the curtains and stay home and worship and meditate and don't go out until it's finished. And this would be very worrying. Why are they doing it? Oh, because Rahu and Ketu are swallowing the sun. It's a horrible day. But that doesn't make sense. Surely, Rahu, Ketu, where did they come from? The moon just came in front of the sun. So nobody's swallowing the sun. Surely it's not right. There was another reason behind it, whereby that other reason is the reason why we adopt it as a religious injunction. What was the other reason? Think about it. And I gave a talk like this to Muslim college about 2 weeks back. Imagine teaching Hindus at Muslim college. I do it very regularly. And they say the same thing. They have the same issue. When there is an eclipse, pray, worship, don't go out like that. I said, do you know why they are doing it or why you are doing it? There's another reason. Not because Rahu, Ketu are swallowing the sun. Look, your common sense, there's no Rahu, Ketu. Where did they come from? And how do they swallow the sun? There'll be trouble. So it doesn't make sense. So reject straight away. The answer is this. For thousands of years, millions of people who were not aware of what is actually happening in the skies, and there's a farmer, say, plowing the fields, middle of the day, suddenly the sun disappears. It becomes pitch dark in the middle of the day. And they're plowing the fields. They don't know about solar eclipse. They don't know. They've never heard the word. And they look up in the sky. What happened to the sun? What happened to the sun? And the sun is gone and they're staring. What's happened? With the plow in their hand like that. And soon the moon begins to move away. And there's a light coming out. They can see a ring. And they keep staring. Wow, never seen stuff like that. They keep staring. Do you know what happens if you stare like that for 30 seconds? The retina of your eyes are burned forever. You become blinded. Millions of people over thousands of years have been blinded because they don't know solar eclipse. You don't look at it. It's going to destroy your eyes because it's very deceptive. It's very interesting, exciting. You stare at it. And I tell you, 30 seconds will destroy the retina. You become permanently blind. Nobody can, even in modern times, you can't get this, recover. So it's a major issue. So what the people of religions did is this. This is my interpretation. Look, I'm using my common sense to try and say, why did they do it? Why is it so crucial? In order to protect the eyes of this kind of, gullible people who don't know what's happening, this is called solar. They don't know. You don't look at it. And they're going to be tempted to look at it and become blind. So warn them to stay indoors. So you get the panchang out. Yes. Surya Grahan. In the house. Don't go out. Protect. So religion was used as a ploy for this reason. So you should be able to judge. There are other health issues which become incorporated as religious injunction, but they are mostly to do with health. Allow for that. Don't say this is horrible. But once you know how do I come to this kind of conclusion? Because I want to keep this switched on. Think for myself. If I went into all the Shastras, I'll get 10 different interpretations. And then I go to the Shastris and they'll give me 100 different interpretations. So rather than all that, I'd rather use my own common sense and come to terms. Suppose it doesn't make sense to me, I will reject it. My mentor says reject. Anything that is negative, don't swallow it. You'll be destroyed if you start swallowing things that don't make sense to you. Reject if necessary. So my little youngster, I'm telling you, if things don't make sense to you, if a cat has walked by, say, why poor black cat should be, this is color discrimination. Why not white cat as well then? This is the way you challenge the issues. Why not white cat? What has black cat, poor black cat done? He's already black, and what more do you want? You can't park. So this is color discrimination, and then walk through. Look, suppose you get it wrong, so be it. Suppose there is some real reason, you don't know about it. But if you don't know about it, you're going to follow it. Doesn't matter. Always challenge things that don't make sense to you. Remember that all your life. This will help you, will make you a very strong individual, very upright, very clear thinker. Then you can make a good contribution in society. Otherwise, you are rattled up inside, you are broken up inside. What contribution can you make? Challenge things that don't make sense to you.
Well, I believe that is the end of that video. And so this is a really interesting and I would say juicy topic, because superstitions have got so many people by surprise. I mean, so many people blindly believe so many superstitions without questioning at all the validity of what they're being told to do, whether it makes any sense for them. So Jay-Bhai is totally right. It has to pass through some filters of rationality, and you need to use your own judgment. And like he said, if you then make a mistake, that's down to you, it's fine. But don't just blindly follow just because you have been told to follow. So that's very interesting. Vijay-bhai, Sita-ben, welcome to today's call. This is the very last call for this year. Do you have any words for our viewers before we start with the topic of the day?
Sita, you want to have a go?
No, I mean, thank you to everybody who's been supporting us over the last year and over the last few years. We have our regular viewers, which we are very grateful for. You bring the whole program alive, and we're so grateful to you for your support. So please do keep watching us in the new year. Vijay-bhai?
Yeah, thank you for joining us and watching all these programs. It's really nice to see. I think one thing to keep in mind is that for us, since I started working with Jay-bhai nearly 20 years ago, his message has always been profound in the sense that he wants to get all the youngsters to understand the true message of Hinduism, because for so long, for various reasons, economical reasons, historical reasons, we tend to have become a bit shown some apathy towards our religion. So Jay-bhai has made a tremendous effort, especially among the youth, to bring the profound ideas and how they can affect our life positively, and also to show us what wonderful heritage we have. So thank you all for supporting us in doing that work. Thank you.
Now, coming back to today's topic, superstitions, we look at lunar eclipse as one example, but there are so many different superstitions. I mean, and it's not really only isolated to Hinduism. I mean, every single culture has their own set of superstitions. And so let's kick off the conversation. Vijay-bhai, what are some of the top superstitions that you recall? You've been told to watch out or don't do this or do this way because of certain things.
So, I mean, one, of course, is a solar eclipse one. You shouldn't touch this, you shouldn't do that. That I used to have a lot of that when I was young. And I didn't understand it then, obviously. It's only when I started studying science that I got it. But even some simple things like, a cat passing in front of you, you should not cross the road, or at least when I was young, I was also told not to wear black, try and wear light clothes. And I would say, what's wrong with wearing a black shirt? And I said, no, you should try and avoid that. So these are some of the things I've kind of faced. More than that, I mean, I can't remember, but I know there have been quite a few things in my life. And also sometimes by looking at my charts, which I've now seen, I'm not supposed to see, but I've got seen my the chart when I was born. They did a chart for me, astrological chart, and my prediction. So they say you should not really see it, but I didn't mind reading my own chart. But the thing is that, sometimes people actually behave in such a way to make your kind of predictions come true. So Anna Caruso, you should know that you should not go out far because it's decided for you, it's not good for you, it's bad luck to you. So it's all this I've actually faced for a long time. But then, when you think, now I think back, like, why did you wear dark clothes? Because, in India it's really hot, right? So you don't wear a black shirt, do you? You wear black trousers. You try and wear white. But they won't say it that way. They say, no, it's not good color. God doesn't like that color. And I say, right. So you see all this stuff. And the idea of the cat, I still don't understand to this day, because, if you're scared of a cat passing through in front of you, I think you should be scared of a human passing in front of you, because human is far worse than a cat in terms of malice and cruelty and evil thoughts, right? So if a cat can throw you off your path, then I think you wonder what's going on. But there you go. And as Jayabhai mentioned, the idea of lunar eclipse solar eclipse makes sense, because in that case, the UV light will damage our corona. Reason why on every day-to-day basis we don't look at the sun is because so bright we can't look at it anyway. When it's covered, people forget that the UV light is still coming from the ring, and that can damage your eyes. Also, something I think people forget is when you get the sun at a sunset, that's very different. The angle is different. But with bright overhead right in your eyes, you can actually burn your cornea. But with science, you can understand all these stuff. But I can understand that in the olden days, the rishis there's no other way to do this, because people listen to them. When they said, no, it's a sin, people listen. I've seen that many times in even when I was traveling to Gujarat, and I was talking to some of the monks, and quite often the government actually comes to the monks to say something. They don't listen to the government. If the monks say it, okay, they go the authority of scriptures, they listen to them. So sometimes they can use this kind of gullible idea people to get them to do some things for their own benefit. So you have that as well. So there are mad reasons for doing that. But I think this day and age, we should try and stay away from what Jayabhai. If it doesn't make sense to the rest of the faculty, please personally stay away. That's all I can say to that.
There are many common superstitions in Hinduism that are, having some sound basis for their being there. So, for example, I remember once my mom used to tell me, "Don't cut your nails in the evening after sunset." I'm like, why not? But there is a reason for it. Way back many years ago, there was no light like we have here, electricity. So it is dangerous to cut your nails in the dark. They say, don't go and sleep under the tree in the evening, because obviously there's carbon dioxide at that time of the night. And so it's not safe for you to sleep under the tree or whatever. There's various different things. Like, if you go to the cemetery after you've just cremated a body, you go home and have a bath. And that was meant for sanitary and medical purposes. It means that you're going to a place where somebody just passed away, possibly from a disease. You met with different people who could be infected, so you just go home and get rid of whatever you can from your body, and you don't get affected. So there are reasons behind some of these things, but there's a time and a place for it as well. And so I think it's time for us to adapt, evolve. Like we say, Hinduism is a living religion. It is based on the context of the time and age when these things were appropriate. So coming to this, Sitaben, I have a question for you. How are superstitions viewed within Hinduism, and to what extent are they considered a part of the religion?
So that's a really good question. I think the thing with superstitions is, if you don't really understand the depth of your religion, if you don't understand the philosophy and the reasoning and the rationale behind it, it's very easy to sort of fall back on the externals of a religion. So you fall back on the rituals, you fall back on the superficial side of religion, all the external things that you can see, that you can physically see and do and not do. And you fall back on that and you think that that is your religion. And I think one of the biggest sort of problems, I think, especially in Hindu thinking, is this idea of astrology, because it's really awful for you to rely on planets to dictate your life. Even the fact that you have to sort of rely on certain times of the day, you can only do auspicious things at certain times of the day, you have absolutely no control over your life. So if you think that's all religion is, you've got a very sort of superficial handle on what religion is all about. rather than understanding the depth, you're focusing on the externals, the superficials. So I think it's so incredibly important that, you know, through Dad's work, we try and sort of encourage people to understand the depth of Hinduism. It's not just about rituals and colorful clothes and the externals and falling into the trap of believing in superstitions, because I think the other danger is that people feel if they don't follow these superstitions, they're not being religious, they're not being good human beings, they're not being good people. Whereas actually the philosophy of Hinduism is much deeper than just, oh, you should do this or you should not do that. There is so much more depth there. So if you have a better, more rational, focused understanding of your religion, you can actually say, look, I can put this into perspective. This is not something that is relevant to today's day. For example, even time of the month, that's another big problem, another big superstition for girls, that they are not supposed to go to the temple when they're, you know, having their period, their time of the month. And you can understand the rationale behind it, because hundreds and thousands of years ago, we didn't have all these wonderful sanitary products. So you don't want girls to go into the temple bleeding. But having now, looking at the current world, we've got all the amazing equipment, we've got all the sanitary products you could ask for. There is no longer any danger of little girls coming into the temple and bleeding. So I think it's incredibly important that we move on, because we become very sort of fixated on certain ideas. And we think if we don't keep those sort of practices alive, we are not following our religion, we're not keeping our religion alive. But actually, that's not what our religion is all about. It was purely a hygienic reason as to why girls couldn't go to the temple when it was their time of the month. And now, I mean, I know many girls actually used to go and ask my dad, why do my parents stop me from going to the temple when I'm on my period? And Dad would say, there is absolutely no reason to not go to the temple. If you see God as your mother or your father, you don't suddenly keep, you know, a distance from your parents when it's your time of the month. You're completely fine. They're your parents. They're the people you love and they love you. So why should you keep a distance from them, especially these days when we've got all the sort of sanitary products that you can ask for?
Fantastic. So yeah, so there certainly was a time and a place for some of these things. And but like I said, you know, it was in the context of the time they existed. So perhaps it's time now for us to evolve and move forward with new versions of these. So, Vijay, how do Hindu teachings about the nature of reality, causality, and the role of the divine relate to superstitions and the belief in luck or fate?
I think the thing is, this is the thing, because ultimately, you know, Nishidbhai, we are already divine and already free, Atman. It's the externals which actually bind us. And ironically, the idea of superstition actually just binds us more to the idea of Maya or idea of materialism. Because now that's controlling you, right? So how are you going to be free? So in this sense, the externals, we have to be very careful. They can be quite controlled. I guess people have, you know, some sort of fear or some sort of expectation. They somehow believe that superstition may help them and, you know, get away from fear, whatever. It just doesn't make sense if you think rationally. I'll give you an example. I met one person. They call them numerologists. They work with numbers, and they with numbers they decide your future. And they go, your lucky number is this. And if you have this number and this number is in your life, this will happen. And then I challenged him. I said, look, you know, it just so happens by chance that, you know, we have 10 fingers, so we use decimal. What if he was an alien with, you know, hexadecimal, 16 fingers? Then there's no number 11 anymore. It's called a B. So what are you going to do that? You know, so but then, you know, that B would make sense. And he started giving excuses. So number is just a particular count, right? In number of events, right? So why would it be so special? And this is the thing. So, but the people want this. I think that shows partly a sense of I don't say insecurity, but maybe there's some expectation they need, and they want this to help them. So, I mean, you know, sometimes I read these charts, Aquarius. I'm Aquarius, so I read just for the fun of in Metro. And generally, it's okay. It's mostly positive, no harm done. It's just really positive, and yeah, okay, yeah. And most of them are so generally they kind of fit anyway, right? But the point is the more we get into this, we have to be careful. It takes you further away from what your true nature is, your true divine, because ultimately the externals don't matter. And how are you going to cross that if you keep on going deeper and deeper into it? But sad to say this, but in India, it's very, very big. I've seen so many work days wasted by politicians because they don't do certain things on certain days. But the job is to help the people, right? But these stars are controlling them. As Jayabhai just said, you be your own master. Why do you want all this to control you? Look, I'm not saying, because I know I've been to a couple of Vedic schools in India, not one, but, and Jyotishya is part of one of the 6 Vedangas, arms of study. But the point is, okay, there may be a link because you're all ultimately linked. Everything in the universe is linked to each other. Fair enough. We all one divine Atma. But to start using externals to try and somehow, work out what my life is, I think we should be careful. We should be your own master. That's all I can say to that, Sita.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Swami Vivekananda was the most empowering person, because he said, don't let rocks in the sky dictate your life. Just say that, have the strength within yourself to say, I'm going to control the rocks in the sky. Don't let them control you. And I think that was really a very important message for India, which was falling into this trap of becoming very superstitious and believing in all of these things without rationally thinking them through. So I think there was a real need for somebody to come along and rattle the cage and say, hang on, think about this properly, make sure you accept everything rationally. And he even goes so far as to say, even if the Vedas, even if the scriptures of Hinduism don't make sense to you, don't accept it if it doesn't fit in with your rational framework. So I think that's a very empowering message to have. And there was a need for it because, for centuries, like from generation to generation, you're always told you must do this because this is what our religion is. You must do this. And people used to do it unquestioningly. But times have changed dramatically now, and the younger generations want to know why. And when they see that their parents are not able to provide the whys, they move away from the idea of religion. So I think it's incredibly important that we encourage this questioning, but we should also have the answers to hand as well.
Fabulous. So I'm going to list some of the common superstitions. I've just found some with some scientific reasoning behind them. So Charmaine asked that once upon a time, her grandma used to say that don't be under the tree after dark and so on. And so the logic behind, like I said, especially this people tree, people no jhad, they call it. That one's been defamed for particular no reason, I think, in my opinion. But the common sense is this: plants use photosynthesis, so during the day they give out oxygen. In the night, it's the opposite. They give out carbon dioxide. So it's obviously not really great for you to be there. The other one is lemon and chilies. And that's a very common one. And so there's a logic behind that as well. So the logic behind it is basically, there's no scientific reason as such, but basically they're just saying that people like this pungent, sour, hot things. The individual just hang out lemon and chili, so that the goddess eats her favorite food and goes back from there fully satisfied. There's no logic behind it. See, the black cat crossing path. And this thing came from Egypt. That's where they used to worship the cat. Are evil creatures, right? But when it came to India, it was mostly Lord Shani is related to the color black, and so therefore that's the logic attached to that. And so many others like that. It is very incredible how these superstitions evolved over time. Sometimes they've got nothing to do with logic at all. So I'm coming to the next question. Are there any Hindu texts or teachings that address the topic of superstitions? And if so, what do they say?
So the first example that comes to my mind is obviously what Swami Vivekananda said. In the most recent, in contemporary words in English, he is able to rattle the cage and say, forget these superstitions, don't be so controlled by all of these superstitions. So I think that's probably the best place to go. In terms of more ancient texts, to be honest, I'm not aware. I don't know if Vijay Bhai is aware of any. But I think it's very important that we've got somebody in recent times telling us, think these things through. It's so incredibly important because all of us are sort of vulnerable and we're always looking for beliefs and traditions to hang on to, which in a way it can be a positive thing because that helps religion to move from generation to generation. But it also means that the right ideas need to move from generation to generation. And if we sort of get stuck in a rut, then the whole of religion stagnates and it starts to sort of stink in a way. So you need to keep things fresh, keep things evolving, and just make sure that we are fitting religion and spirituality into the mold and the needs of the current world that we are living in, which is changing dramatically. Over the last 100 years, it's changed dramatically. So I think it's incredibly important to keep rethinking what we show and what we practice and show our younger generations to make it appealing. Otherwise, it's going to go in the museum. It's just going to be something in the archives that we look at. And this is something that we used to do hundreds of years ago. And we don't want religion to be like that. It's got an incredibly important purpose in bringing spirituality to the world and having a more metaphysical understanding of the universe. Vijay?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just to mention, actually, there are many scriptures I haven't read. I mean, I may have glanced one or two, but there's a lot of questions of Jyotishri, which is the idea of astrology. And it's been there for a long, long time. But you have to be very careful, because I'll give you one example, which has caused tremendous damage. I tell you how. Because when I was very young, I was told that some of these scripts written down, they said that, oh, we should be careful if we touch the lower caste, because they have this special vibe, because they've worked out, I don't know how. So it creates all kinds of negative, it can have really tremendous damage as well. But the other thing to keep in mind is that it is true that they've been vast, many years, people have been practicing this kind of astrology. But with the coming of science in the last 100 years, so much progress, the problem is that if you think of pushing this, it'll push the youth away. Yeah, you have to say, okay, now it's time to stop this. Okay, fine. For hundreds of people to make them feel better because of the situation. Because sometimes people get hope, you say positive things because of, you're suffering now, but I can see your stars. All well and good. But now with this day and age, we move so much. I think we have to be careful. But I'll be honest with you, I have actually been talked to some of these who do astrology, and they were very sharp at me. They really had a big go at me. How dare you? This is tremendous power and all this stuff. So it's still there. It's a lot of people are still doing it. But look, I would stick with the words from American. You are your own master, and stay away from this. I'm not saying that we should, for historical reasons, we should read them for historical reasons. Fine, to understand our history. But we should be very careful not to use that to control lives. And I mean, not only that, I've seen somebody coming and selling me stones in my village. Yeah, if you wear this stone, that stone, this will go away. And they say, as soon as I saw you, I can see that you have this problem. And all this things happen. And sometimes you wonder, is it really true, or is it just a big business? I'll give you another interesting example. My wife's name doesn't start with the letter that she was given on the day. It didn't fit the charts. Her name doesn't fit those rasis she got. Yeah. And when I got married, that's the first thing the Brahmin checks, right, before you get married. And he goes, "Ooh, this should not work." I said, "What are you talking about work?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, I can't just say I won't marry my wife. Come on, I'm going to marry." He says, "Okay, I got a solution. You have to do X, Y, Z ceremony." And I was not into it, but my mother really insisted. I did it. And he made a good couple of £100 out of it to try to negate the effects of her name, which didn't fit her. And the irony is this: the name she was given, was by given a very tremendously spiritual, holy lady in our community. And she didn't look at the chart. She just gave the name because she felt that it suits her. So somehow that was negated because he saw the charts and he didn't like it. So I mean, what I saw is that I just take so much of my time away for no reason, with no additional benefit. This is how I saw it. But I think we should try and move on. That's all I have to say to this. Bye.
Fabulous. So, Sitabel, how do Hindu practitioners navigate the balance between the influence of superstition and influence of superstition on their daily life and teachings of religion about the nature of reality and so on? There's a balance between following religion and then being superstitious as well. How do you find a balance between the two?
That's a really good question. I think the thing is, if you sort of focus on the philosophy and the deeper sort of teachings, you will not be attracted towards the superstitions and the externals. If you are truly attracted to the spiritual heart of Hinduism, you will not find any interest in the externals. You may look at these things and you say, "Oh, that doesn't really apply to me. It's no longer relevant for me." So I think you will definitely, because your heart will tell you that this is true and this is correct, Because if you are in the right place mentally, those things will appeal to you. If your mind is still sort of fluctuating and you're still unsure about certain things, you may be more attracted to the externals of religion. So it depends on your wavelength, what you are attracted to. And the whole point of our life and our spiritual journey is to make sure we sort of correct or fine-tune our wavelength to make sure that we are focused more on the deeper philosophy rather than the externals of religion. Because the deeper philosophy is something that will make you feel deeply connected with the rest of the living kingdom, with the rest of humanity. And the real litmus test of your progress is, are you doing well in your spiritual journey? Is that you will feel this great affinity, this great harmony with nature, with the whole of humanity. You'll start feeling that affinity. Whereas if you focus on the externals and the superstitions and all of that, actually it can be, it keeps you quite limited in your daily life and your practices. It's quite limited. Whereas if you focus on the broader ideas, your vision becomes broader, your priorities change, and you focus on the needs of others rather than your own little sort of your own personal gain, basically. So I think it depends on your wavelength, and we need to keep sort of fine-tuning our wavelength until we feel more deeply attracted to what really matters, which is the philosophical heart of Hinduism. Vijay?
So I think, yeah, Nishiba, I think the idea of the balance, I mean, I'm not sure it's a balance really, because people just live and, some people believe in this, some people in charts, some people will not believe. It's like it's part of people's daily lives. For some people, as I say, they love read the horoscopes, they feel so good about it. Fine. I mean, but ultimately, we have realized the journey has to be inwards, as Upanishad say, is to find your true nature. And that can only happen with detachment. You have to practice, Vairagya ultimately to free yourself from all this. That has to come at some point. But as Krishna says in the Gita, everybody's in their own journey, and don't disturb them. Let them progress from there. That's all I can add to that, because it can get really damaging. You can really get upset if you say, no, this is all rubbish. You don't want to believe it, fine. But as I said, we have to be careful. Sometimes it causes tremendous damage to society. It can even progress. It can also progress of whole society. I mean, as I said, I remember in India, there's some politicians, oh, I can't do this week. I will next week, come next week, because I got these bad things in my chart. 1 week is wasted. Somebody's waiting for some answers, right? So sometimes you have to think a bit, what's of higher priority, So, well, all I can add is that, yeah, ultimately you have to detach and free yourself from all this stuff.
I understand there are many things that we don't fully grasp, maybe. And so therefore, there may be some truth behind this in terms of from the people who are more conversant in certain practices. But I have seen a lot of people making some, I call it wild choices sometimes, maybe, for example, so they would say, you got Sunny in your astrology chart, so you need to get this ring, and then this ring has to be meditated on for this many thousand times. We have to do this, this mantra or whatever on that nung, and then it will become something that can counter what they say is the problem in your astrology chart and so on. I've seen people do self-sacrifice, say that if I do this, then God grant me this kind of a thing. And it'll be like some crazy kind of sacrifices that they would do, right? And so superstitions can be good to a point, but there are also times when it can go overboard, cause harm. I mean, like many religions, they have it. Something comes to mind. What is this superstition about where they have the hooks into their bodies, and it's really, there's some which they whip them, and there's so many different kinds of things. It's quite an interesting thing to see how people think and what they believe in. So it's all I'm going to say is have a strong belief system, use your rational faculties, move with today's times. Don't just listen to what you've been told and accept it for what it's supposed to be. So with that, Sitaben, here's another question for you. Hindus believe a lot in the law of karma, dharma, etc. How do Hindu teachings about karma and dharma intersect with superstitions about luck and fate?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I mean, so obviously, doing good karma is something very important. The law of karma is such a central idea in Hindu philosophy. And we are told that, we should do as much good work in the world as we can. And that's called dharma, doing righteous action, having a righteous living. So it does intersect with each other. But this idea of luck and this idea of fate are something that are sort of lie in the realm, in a way, of superstition, because they are things which are sort of beyond our control. Karma is something that we can control. To a certain extent, it's something that we can control. Dharma is something we can control. Righteous living, doing good work in the world as much as possible. We try and do good actions and good work. But we have to also look at it from a sort of philosophical standpoint. Any sort of action we put into place, yes, we want it to have a good result. But the world is incredibly complex and complicated, and you may have the best intentions in the world, but you may inadvertently cause some kind of harm to somebody else. For example, the simplest example is my existence involves breathing, but breathing involves killing so many hundreds and thousands of microbes. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stop breathing? So every action we do, even though, I just want to live and I want to do good work in the world, fair enough, but you're killing hundreds and thousands of microbes on a daily basis, every second, every minute. So all of our actions are tinged with so-called good actions and bad results and good results. We just have to do the best we can in this muddle which we call life. And we should try and avoid thinking so much about luck, because that's very much linked with the idea of superstition. And we should also try not to think about the idea of fate. Just think, this is me in my particular circumstance. I'm going to do the best I can with my limited abilities in my limited circumstances. And that's all that you can do. Try not to think about what is going to happen to me if I do this and what's going to happen to me if I do that. So luck and fate sort of lie in the realm of something that I can't really control. Let me focus on what I can control, even though it's limited and even though it's sort of tainted with bad and good. Let me do the best I can in my limited frame. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think the thing is, when you talk about karma and dharma, we actually, as Sita said, we can only control the karma to a certain extent. I mean, as I said, luck and fate, they just happen. There's so many things come into play to that kind of thing to happen. But to believe that that can happen because of some special reason or some special superstition, then I think we have to be careful. But I like the idea what Sita mentioned, that in some ways live in the presence and work the best you can with what you have. Don't think about the future too much, because if you start and superstition decide your future, then you will lose your present. How are you going to work in the present? That happens to a lot of people. That, oh, I know this has been planned for me. This is going to happen for me. I've been told by my guru. What do I do now? So they don't live in the present. It's quite interesting. There's this Buddhist concept in Zen Buddhism called they call them koans. And there's one interesting, koans means how to react in certain situations. There's one situation they talk about is that there's a person running away from a tiger, and at the edge of the cliff, he falls and he holds the root. At the bottom is another tiger trying to get him. And while he's struggling, he sees nearby a strawberry plant, very sweet strawberry. So what does he do? He eats this nice sweet strawberry and he enjoys it. He feels really good about it. In fact, he's living in the present, right? He's not worried about the future and the past. So sometimes we have to be careful that if we think too much of the past or too much of the future, it can bind us down. So we have to, and superstition is part of that, because superstition makes you feel that, I did so and so this is going to happen now. If I do so and so, this is going to be the future. Then if your time is used up in thinking that, then you can't actually benefit in the present. So there are a lot of things you have to keep in mind. I mean, as I said, if there's some positive things, charts talk about, all these metro charts, this star, that's okay. Or you can have a good day, you can have this, you're going to be nice, fine. That's not a problem. But some people are really into serious stuff, and that's worrying. So, yeah.
Fabulous. So we are almost 45 minutes into the session today. I am going to wrap this particular topic up by doing a recap of what we have spoken about. Or let me do a little synopsis about superstitions and how we should treat them in today's world. So Hinduism, just like many other religions and cultures, includes a number of superstitions that have been passed down through the generations. These superstitions may take various forms, such as beliefs about lucky and unlucky number of days, the power of certain objects or rituals to bring you good fortune, or the significance of certain omens and signs. In Hinduism, these superstitions have always been seen as a way to connect with the divine and to understand and navigate the complexities of the world. However, it's important to realize and recognize that superstitions may not always be based on scientific or logical evidence, and they should not be given undue weight or influence in your decision-making status. So in the modern world of today, it may be helpful to approach superstitions with a sense of curiosity and openness, whilst also being mindful of the potential dangers of blindly following superstitions without critical thinking. It's important to be aware of the cultural and historical context of superstitions and to recognize that they may not necessarily align with the contemporary values or knowledge. So ultimately, it is up to each individual to decide how to incorporate superstitions into their daily lives, if at all, into their beliefs and practices, whilst also being mindful of the potential impact on themselves and others around them. So it may be helpful to consider the teachings of Hinduism and other wisdom traditions about the nature of reality, causality, the role of personal effort, and the intention in shaping one's own life and experiences. So that's my synopsis, and let's crack on with the rest of the show today. So folks, thank you so very much for joining us. We have the first question here from Ramaswarup Godara. His question is, why Advait Vedanta contradicts with the Vedas? Sitaben?
So, I mean, I'm not sure if I quite get the question, but Advait is the end portion of the Vedas, so it doesn't really, I don't think it causes any kind of contradiction. Maybe you mean the contradiction in terms of Dvait and Advait, maybe. So this idea of Dvait is you see yourself as being separate to God, and you know, people who follow the path of Bhakti Yoga, they see themselves as separate to God. They love a particular form of God and they worship that particular form of God to feel a relationship with the ultimate. And Advait is where you actually see yourself as divine, you see yourself as the spirit. And on the surface of it, they may look very sort of contradictory, because, you know, you're saying in one hand God is a personality, and on the other hand you're saying God is a principle. But actually, when you reach the conclusion of both of these approaches, you actually find that the conclusion is the same. So they're like different points on a circumference of a circle. They have very different starting points, but when they converge, they come to the center and you get to the same conclusion. Because when you sort of have your love and devotion towards a particular deity, eventually the conclusion of that love is that you can no longer see yourself as separate from that deity, from Ram or Krishna or whoever it is. And that is essentially what we are trying to get to with the path of Advait as well, where you see yourself as the spirit. So ultimately, even though they may sound contradictory, they do converge and become the same truth. Vijay?
Yeah, I think Sita, yeah, I agree with you. I think the key thing to remember in the Vedas is a very vast collection of Indic, traditions and the beliefs of divine. So don't forget that the Vedas documents all the possible human endeavors, at least on the Indian subcontinent, to find the divine. Starting from the earliest portion of worshipping nature as personified, the Samhita part, the rituals, they all try to link up with the divine. Doesn't matter external or internal, but the end portion, which is the culmination of the Vedas, which is as Sira mentioned, the Vedanta or the Upanishads, they are very clear in the sense they are Advait. You'd be surprised, even the Dvait traditions, in a way, when they mention their philosophy, they actually use Advait. You'd be surprised. I'll give you an example. Like Ramanuja, although he's a believer of God is separate entity, not like separate from Atma Brahmana, separate to some extent, even he says is Vishisht Advait. It's not Vishisht Advait, it's Vishisht Advait. So even he agrees that the word in the Upanishad, when he look at his works, he goes, the Upanishad actually says Advait. So he has used Advait to explain his philosophy. Even though it may look Dvait, the key word in Upanishad is actually Advait. Even Vallabhacharya is Shuddha Advait. People forget that. It's not Shuddha Advait, it's Shuddha Advait. So Advait purified. So Advait is very clear. The word in Upanishad, the Hashi, is very clear. It is Advait. Advait means Atman and Brahman are actually, in a sense, one. You can explain whatever way you want, but ultimately, as Sita mentioned, they ultimately culminate the same answer. So there's no contradiction as such. It may be two different ways of thinking things, but ultimately they're the same.
Fabulous. So the next question I have here is from, bear with me, is from Priyanshu Singh. And Priyanshu Singh is asking, how does one progress in Bhakti Marg?
So I think the Bhakti Marg is basically all you have is to love for God. If you understand the idea of the Nauda Bhakti, that's one of the best ways of doing it, because in the Ramayana, especially Tulsi Ramayana, it explains that when Ram met Shabri in the story, the greatest gift that Ram gave to humanity through Shabri, now Shabri is very special because it's through her we get the idea of Nauda Bhakti, 9 forms of Bhakti. Chanting God's glory, chanting is remembering his legends, self-reflection, Swadhyaya, simplicity in life. So this Nauda Bhakti, the 9 forms of Bhakti, meditation, living frugally, helping other devotees, all this in together kind of help you progress towards bhakti, depending what your strengths are. But the key idea is to cultivate good qualities as per your dharma and progress. If you do that and have emotional bond with God, then you're on your way to bhakti already. Though you don't have to feel that you sit for hours and hours in a temple, or like, it doesn't work like that. It's purely, it has come from the heart, and what comes from the heart is far more important than doing external rituals. Keep that in mind in the bhakti tradition. Sita?
Yeah, not much more to add. I mean, as we were saying previously, eventually the conclusion of bhakti is that you can no longer see yourself as separate from the object of your devotion. And I love the image of Hanuman where he opens his chest and there is the image of Ram inside, because essentially that is the culmination of bhakti. You can't see yourself as separate from the object of your devotion.
Fabulous. Now, we are almost coming to the end of the broadcast. This broadcast would not be ending properly if we didn't also bring into the session the big topic of today, which is today is the weekend, is the month end, also the year end. So what a coincidence. And so with that, it is customary, not in Hinduism necessarily, but in the Western world, it's customary. A lot of people take stock of, what did we do over the year? What am I going to do in the next year? Come up with some resolutions. And as we know, most of these resolutions are broken within the first 2 weeks anyway. But I would like to ask you all, the viewers, what are some of your resolutions? Now, in Hinduism, Vijay, we have the 5 eternal yamas of yoga, right? We have, I think those are a great place to start. If you want to have New Year resolution, then looking at ahimsa, which is not harming anybody or anything. Satya, which is truthfulness. There's asteya, which is not only about not stealing, but it's also about things like, for example, if I go and help somebody and I expect them to thank me, and if they don't thank me, then I feel bad and say, oh, I'm entitled to being thanked because I helped them. No, do more, expect less, right? So those are the kind of things. Brahmacharya, which is give up on certain things. It's very hard. This is one I don't think anybody is able to do in today's world. And there's aparigraha, which basically means stay away from materialism. Or like how Mahatma Gandhi, a fellow Hindu and Gujarati, once said, I live simply so that others may simply live. So those 5 things I think are a great way to start your New Year's resolutions if you want to have one. I'm sure you can stick to a few and attack them one by one if you need to. But what are good New Year resolutions, Vijay, according to you?
So, I mean, some of them, as you mentioned, speak truthfully, do less harm. I think also put some individual goals. Key idea is to put spiritual goals as well. How can you progress spiritually? That's what we are about, right? So that means disciplining yourself, disciplining the mind, maybe doing more meditation, more focused in what you do. I mean, it doesn't mean that okay, I have to start, opening up scriptures and start reading every day. No, that's not how Hinduism works. But say if you're doing some charity work, so I'll do extra charity work. Even if you're doing your job, if you're doing your own daily job, okay, now this year I'll learn more skills. I'll learn more of this. Put a target. I know X amount of stuff. I will learn all these new skills and develop myself in what I know. Because ultimately, all this is knowledge. Everything helps you. If you're a sportsman, It's okay, this year I've been able to achieve this much, I'm going to achieve this much more. If you're a swimmer, okay, I've been doing 10 lengths, I'll do 20 lengths now. All these are goals, and there's nothing, ultimately, they're all giving you discipline. So if they give you discipline, ultimately they're spiritual as well. So there's so many goals you can have. I mean, I have to learn some lessons. I must finish those lessons. I got some other stuff. So I've also got my own targets, many around Hinduism and teaching. But it's always good to have these targets. It disciplines you and takes you away from needless things like TV or other. They call them faltu in Gujarati. Means works or things that it doesn't give any meaning to you. It just takes time basically. Try and avoid that, Sita.
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful to kind of have this opportunity to take stock of what's happened over the last year and what you're hoping for in the year ahead. And I think something that we sort of tend to forget is we need to follow our heart, follow our intuition, do the things that we love, because the life that we have, at least we believe in reincarnation, so we've got loads of lives, but the life that we've currently got is short and time just whizzes past us. So make sure we take the time to do the things that we love.
Amazing. So for me, I'd like to share some statistics with the viewers here. The statistics are just simply this. Last year around this time, we were celebrating getting to 100,000 subscribers on our channel. Since then, we have grown by 15,800 new subscribers. So thank you very much for each and every one of you who've been helping us by sharing the word about our channel. In total, we had over 85,000 hours of content watched on the channel, and the videos got 1.8 million views in the past year. So from our team here at Hindu Academy, to the family that is out there, the community that support us, just a quick message that as the new year approaches, we want to take a moment to thank you for being part of our journey and to send you our warmest wishes for a happy and prosperous year ahead. Your encouragement and your support have meant so much to us, and we are grateful for the opportunity to share our knowledge and teachings with you. We are excited to announce again in 2023, we will be expanding on our content offering. Stick around with us. We've got some new strategies and new things coming up. It will include an upgrade to our very popular Basics of Hinduism course. We are also expanding on our new Hindi language channel, which also crossed 100,000 views recently. And there's some other exciting content that we can't wait to share with you in the course of the new year. We hope that the new year brings you joy, growth, and all the blessings that you deserve. Thank you for being a part of our community and for your ongoing support once again. We look forward to continuing to learn and grow together in the coming year. So wishing you all a happy and healthy new year from the entire team at Hindu Academy. Remember, there's just more than myself, Vijay Bhai, Sita Ben, Manish Bhai. There is so many people behind the scenes who work tirelessly across different areas of this project to make it what it is today. So from the whole team to you, thank you very much for joining us over the year, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2023. Bye-bye for now.